So we know how to do mouse events, but what about keyboard events? Say we have a web page like this, and notice here we have the quantity of tickets that we need. We have a cost per ticket, and when we change the quantity, we want the total price to be automatically updated. How might we do this with jQuery? Well, let's take a look at the HTML. You can see here we have a div of class vacation, which also contains the price for this vacation. We have the amount of money per ticket. We have our input field. And then lastly, at the bottom, we have our total price. We need to make it so when the input updates, we calculate the total price and update it at the bottom of the page. Obviously, we need to be listening for some sort of keyboard event so that when somebody types a key, we get that quantity and we calculate the total price. So here we can listen on the quantity, but what is going to be the event we're listening for? Well, here's a list of keyboard events. You've got things like key press, key down, key up, and also here's a list of form events because that input is a form field. So we could be listening for blur, select, change, focus, or submit. Check out the documentation if you want to learn more about what each of these does. In our case, though, we want to listen for the key up event. So when somebody stops pressing a key, or a number in this case, we want to then calculate the total price. So let's put key up there at the top, and inside of that event handler, we want to do three things. First, we want to get the price for the vacation. We can get that out of the data element. Then we'll get the quantity they entered in the input field. And then finally, we'll set the total price to price times the quantity. Here's the DOM on the side. And to fetch the price, this should be nothing new. We're going to get this object. So this is the input element. We're going to search for an ancestor, the closest ancestor, with the class of vacation. Then we're going to get the price from the data attribute. That's going to return $399.99. However, this is going to return a string, but we want to do math on this variable. So one way that we can convert this into a number is by adding that plus to the beginning of the statement. That's going to convert the string into a number, which we can use later to do our multiplication. So we have the price, but we need to get the quantity that the user entered. Now remember, it's the input field itself that is triggering the key up event. So we can probably use this to get that input field. However, we need to get the value out of that input field. Luckily, we have some helper methods. We can use val to set the input value or just .val to get the input value. So you might think we can call this .value, but remember, this is not a jQuery object yet. So we need to write $this.value, which will properly return 2. But this returns a string, and again, we need a number. So we'll use that same convention we saw a minute ago and add a plus to the beginning of this statement, like you see here. This returns us the number 2. We'll bring that back up into our code, and the only thing we have left is to multiply the two numbers together and set that equal to the total value on the page. In this case, we'll fetch the span with £total as the ID and set the text to the price times the quantity. And luckily for us, we can pass a number or a string when we're setting a DOM text node. Alright, so now we have our completed text, and whenever that quantity is changed, the key up event will trigger and our total will get updated. So here's our web page again, and now if we update the quantity, we can see the total getting updated at the bottom of the page. Time for you to implement some key events, and I'll see you in the next section.